My review for the DJI FPV drone just published. There's a link to it in the video description if you want to check it out. But even if you already watched it, you need to watch this video because I'm about to give you 10 fast facts about the DJI drone, the new V2 goggles and controller, and a couple of these actually weren't in the video because the information wasn't available at the time. And by far the most common question that I got in the comments to my video related to compatibility between the V2 controller and the V2 goggles and the original V1 system. So let me lay it out for you. The new DJI FPV drone is only compatible with the V2 goggles and the new controller. And if you have the existing goggles and you want to use the drone, you have to buy a new set of goggles. Kind of crappy, but there you go. If you have air units and Vistas, they are compatible with both V1 and V2 goggles. They work exactly the same, but they are not compatible with the V2 controller. And a whole lot of people are going to be disappointed to hear that because a lot of people are liking the look of this freaking controller and they want to use it to fly their regular FPV drones. As of today, this controller only works with the DJI FPV drone. So if you want to fly the FPV drone and regular FPV drones, you're going to need two controllers. But only one set of goggles? What about the 1200 milliwatt mod? On the V1 goggles, you could put a special file on your SD card and it would unlock the goggles from 700 milliwatts maximum output power to 1200 milliwatts maximum output power. And now Joshua from the future is going to correct this segment because I originally recorded this saying that the 1200 milliwatt hack didn't work. And after I said that on the news live stream last night, a whole bunch of people said, oh, it seems to be working for me. So I went and dug a little deeper. And I can confirm that if you are using the firmware version ending with 0606, that the 1200 milliwatt hack does work. It works for me, and it worked for a whole bunch of other people who are reporting in while we were doing the live stream. This is significant because until now, no one had tested this hack on a released version of the firmware. Everybody was using pre-release version or firmware that was basically based on the V1 goggle. So this is the first time we have concrete confirmation that a firmware made specifically for the V2 goggle does have the 1200 milliwatt hack working on it. And this also suggests that the FCC hack, which can be used to unlock output powers over 25 milliwatts and unlock 50 megabit per second mode for people outside FCC regions, it suggests that the FCC hack is also working. By the way, you should not be using that hack if you're not in an FCC region, because that's breaking the rules and it's very, very bad and you shouldn't do that. But one of the features that DJI said was going to exist was output of video via the USB port to a smartphone app, presumably the DJI Fly app. I can confirm that that works if you are using the DJI FPV drone. You plug in the USB to your phone using the adapter that comes with the goggles, and you see, just like with any DJI drone, you see the OSD, you see the camera image, and there are even some menu options that you can change on the phone instead of in the goggles. However, if you put the goggles into the FPV mode that works with the Air Unit and the Vista, that doesn't work as of today. DJI said, we are going to allow video out over USB. It occurs to me that they didn't say that they were going to do that with the Air Unit and the Vista. They just said that they were going to do it. So could they have meant that they're only going to do it with the FPV drone? It seems like that was implied, that the Air Unit and the Vista would work, or maybe that's coming in a future firmware update, but at least as of today, it doesn't work. So all you guys who spent $700 on the smart controller may have been smarter than I kind of implied that you guys were dumb and had wasted your money, and maybe that, I'm sorry. A lot of people were questioning that the DJI FPV drone has props in view when you're shooting in 4K mode. This is just completely unacceptable for a cinema drone, but the FPV drone isn't a cinema drone. But then, as we saw in the conclusion of my video, it's not really a pure freestyle drone either, so what even the heck is it? I don't think this decision is as weird as it might seem at first. If you crop in just a little bit to get the props out of view, you still have a fairly decent cinematic field of view. Maybe it's 140 or 135 degrees instead of 150 degrees. So I'm okay with the idea that when you're flying FPV and you're looking in the goggles, you have a wide 150-ish degree field of view that has props in view, but who cares? And then when you're making your cinematic masterpiece, you just crop in a little bit, you lose some field of view, but you probably didn't want that anyway. You may have different opinion, and I certainly respect that. Another question you guys asked relates to the maximum altitude of the drone. Most DJI drones have a maximum altitude of like 400, 500 meters or something, and this one is no different. So if you're intending to use this drone for like mountain surfing, where you take off at one altitude and fly up 2,000 feet, you're not going to be able to. The maximum altitude this drone will allow you to fly is 500 meters above the takeoff point, and that's a hard limit that you basically can't overcome. A lot of people are wondering about the availability of spares for the system. If you crash the drone, can you buy another one? What about the controller? What if you want to just buy the controller itself? Well, since the controller only works with the drone, there's not as much reason to do that, but still presumably you might want to get spares. Right now on the DJI website, we can see the DJI FPV combo, which is the drone, the controller, and the goggles. We know that the goggles have been available for a little while now, although they're out of stock in many places, so obviously the goggles are being sold separately. I can also confirm there's a product listing for the DJI FPV remote controller, can be bought separately for $200, and the drone, spares of the drone, can be bought separately for $739. I mean, I guess that makes the combo a pretty good frickin' deal, since you get the drone is $700, the controller is $900, is $200, which brings you to $900, and the goggles are $575. You are saving a fair amount of freaking money by buy the combo and just sell the extra set of goggles, or the extra. Nobody's going to want the extra control. Never mind. Anyway. Yeah, wait. $12.99 minus $739. $739 is $560. You could buy the combo. You could sell the extra set of goggles brand new for $560. Okay, you probably wouldn't get that. That's very close to the retail price. And you could keep the controller for free and break even with buying the drone by itself. Doesn't make any freaking sense, but they're probably not going to sell the drone for $739. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They're available. There's one more gotcha you should be aware of before you buy this drone, and thank you to Mo Calbinet for bringing it to my attention. I'm just not super into the DJI ecosystem, so the whole concept of DJI Care and exactly how it works is not as on the tip of my tongue, but it was on his, and he immediately saw a potential problem. You see, DJI, they are going to sell some parts for this FPV drone. They've said that they're going to sell the gimbal, a replacement gimbal that you can install yourself, and replacement arms that you can install yourself. But according to Mo, who's been talking to DJI support, they're not going to have replacement parts like motors and so forth. So then what that means is that you have to buy DJI Care, which this is pretty typical if you have a DJI drone. But you have to buy the DJI Care within 48 hours of activating the drone, or you can't buy it ever again, and you just have to pay for the repair costs out of pocket. And according to Mo, the repair costs for the DJI FPV drone, he thinks they're high, and he's not entirely happy with it. Now, I'm not 100% sure how to judge this. For example, as I said to Mo, sometimes support doesn't always know what they're talking about. But Mo asks, if I break a motor and they don't sell spare motors, does that mean I have to send it in? And then they potentially could just say, oh, after you $459, we're going to just refresh your whole drone. If so, that's pretty extreme. And the issue is not necessarily that you can't repair it, but the issue is that if you buy it today, there isn't clear messaging about the situation, and you have to choose to buy in or not without necessarily having all the information at your fingertips. The last thing I want to do in this video is just reiterate the conclusions from the other video about who this drone is for, because a lot of people may not have watched the whole video, although I certainly would love it if you did, and my YouTube analytics would love it if you did. But the takeaway, in my opinion, about this drone is that this is not going to be compelling for FPV pilots. If you know how to build your own drone, then don't buy this. It's cool, it's fun, but the minute you crash it, it's going to be destroyed. And that is just not true for the type of FPV racing freestyle drone that we usually build. If you are serious about getting into freestyle or racing, this is not for you. This may be a stepping stone, but you will need to learn to build your own freestyle and racing drones the way that most freestyle and racing pilots do, again, because of the durability issue and to some degree because of the performance issue. But you could always be willing to compromise on performance in exchange for convenience, but there's no reason to compromise on durability in exchange for convenience. The minute you crash this thing in a serious way, it's going to explode. So who is this right for? I actually think you guys know Ken Heron. He's a YouTuber and he does DJI stuff, and he's just a really fun guy. He's the kind of guy who would like try to do acro freestyle racing with his Mavic, just because why not? And for a DJI pilot who wants more performance than a Mavic can give you, this is really perfect. It has all of the flight modes of a DJI drone. It doesn't have quite the same gimbal capability and image quality as like a Mavic, but is pretty good. And you can actually fly it in acro mode. You can actually really rip it, go 90 miles an hour and so forth. Or if you're a DJI pilot who just wants to get your feet wet with FPV and with freestyle and acro flying, you certainly can, but don't crash it. It's done. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Links in the video description. They're affiliate links because that's how it's one of the ways I support myself. So go click them if you're going to buy it. I hope this was helpful. And that's going to thank you so much. Happy flying. Do you see this baby? Isn't he cute? Hit the subscribe button. Join my Patreon. Use my affiliate links. Or just keep watching videos. That's better than nothing.
Cuckoo Gaga, subscribe to my daddy.